Fear is the mind killer, and nothing paralyzes the soul like being trapped in fear, being too scared to move forward, too scared to actually do anything, to think. I mean, what happens when your brain just attacks you all the time, when you feel like there's a little asshole living in your head that's just gonna punish you every time you're trying to do something fun, every time you're trying to do something to take care of yourself, every time you're trying to do something to just feel alive instead of struggling through epilepsy hell and trying to find your epilepsy well, because honestly, it sucks. Epilepsy sucks and it gets scary and lonely. And that's why you need to know how to overcome through a guide to fearlessness in difficult times. Chapter 2. Tapping into the spring. A human being is a part of the whole called by us the universe, a part limited in time and space. He experiences himself, his thoughts and feelings, and something separate from the rest, a kind of optical delusion of consciousness. This delusion is a kind of prison for us, restricting us to our personal desires and affection for a few persons nearest to us. Our task must be to free ourselves from the prison by widening the circle of understanding and compassion to embrace all living creatures and the whole of nature in its beauty. Albert Einstein. When we were digging the foundation for the retreat center near Gampo Abbey, we hit bedrock, and a small crack appeared. A minute later, water was dripping out. An hour later, the flow was stronger and the crack was wider. Finding the basic goodness of bodhichita is like that, tapping into a spring of living water that has been temporarily encased in solid rock. When we touch the center of sorrow, when we sit with the discomfort without trying to fix it, when we stay present to the pain of disapproval or betrayal and let it soften us, these are the times that we connect with bodhicitta. Tapping into the shaky and tender place has a transformative effect. Being in this place may feel uncertain and edgy, but it's also a big relief. Just to stay there, even for a moment, feels like genuine act of kindness to ourselves. Being compassionate enough to accumulate our own fears takes courage. Of course, it definitely feels counterintuitive, but it's what we need to do. It's hard to know whether to laugh or to cry at the human predicament. Here we are with so much wisdom and tenderness, and without even knowing it, we cover it over to protect ourselves from insecurities. Although we have the potential to experience the freedom of a butterfly, we mysteriously prefer the small and fearful cocoon of ego. A friend was telling me about her eldest parents in Florida. They live in an area where the poverty and hardship and threat of violence seems very real. Their way of relating to this is to live in a walled community protected by guard dogs and an electrical gates. And is their hope, of course, that nothing scary will enter. Unfortunately, my friend's parents are becoming more and more afraid to go outside those walls. They want to go to the beach or the golf course, but they're too scared to budge. Even though they now pay someone to do their shopping, the feeling of insecurity is getting stronger. Lately, they become paranoid even about those who are allowed through the gates. The people who fix broken appliances, the gardeners, the plumbers, and the electricians. Through their isolation, they are becoming unable to cope with an unpredictable world. This is an accurate analogy for the workings of ego. As Albert Einstein pointed out, the tragedy of experiencing ourselves as apart from everyone else is that this delusion becomes a prison. Sadder yet, we become increasingly unnerved at the possibility of freedom. When the barriers come down, we don't know what to do. We need a bit more warning about what it feels like when the walls start tumbling down. We need to be told that the fear and trembling accompanying growing up and that letting go takes courage. Finding the courage to go to the places that scare us cannot happen without compassionate inquiry into the workings of ego. So we ask ourselves, what do I do when I feel I can't handle what's going on? Where do I look for strength, and in what do I place my trust? The Buddha taught that flexibility and openness bring strength, and that running from groundlessness weakens us and brings pain. But do we understand that becoming familiar with the running away is the key? Openness doesn't come from resisting our fears, but from getting to know them well. Rather than going after those walls and barriers with the sledgehammer, we pay attention to them. With gentleness and honesty, we move closer to those walls. We touch them and smell them, and we get to know them well. We begin to a process of acknowledging our aversions and our cravings. We become familiar with our strategies and beliefs we used to build the walls. What are the stories I tell myself? What repels me and what attracts me? We start to get curious about what's going on. Without calling what we see right or wrong, we simply look as objectively as we can. We can observe ourselves with humor, not getting overly serious, moralistic, or uptight about this investigation. Year after year, we train in remaining open and receptive to whatever arises. Slowly, very slowly, the cracks in the walls seem to widen, and, as if by magic, bodhichita is able to flow freely. A teaching that supports us in this process of unblocking bodhicitta is that of the three lords of materialism. These are the three ways that we shield ourselves from this fluid, unpinned downable world. Three strategies we use to provide ourselves with the illusion of security. This teaching encourages us to become very familiar with those strategies of ego, to see clearly how we continue to seek comfort and ease in ways that only strengthen our fears. The first of the three lords of materialism is called the Lord of Form. It represents how we look to externals to give us solid ground. We can begin to pay attention to our methods of escape. What do I do when I feel anxious and depressed, bored, or lonely? Is shopping therapy my way of coping? Or do I turn to alcohol or food? Do I cheer myself up with drugs or sex? Or do I seek adventure? Do I prefer retreating into the beauty of nature or into the delicious world provided by a really good book? Do I fill up the space by marking phone calls, by surfing the net, by watching hours of TV? Some of these methods are dangerous, some are humorous, some are quite benign. The point is that we can misuse any substance or activity to run away from insecurity. When we become addicted to the Lord form, we are creating the causes and conditions for suffering to escalate. We can't get any lasting satisfaction, no matter how hard we try. instead of the very feelings we're trying to escape from get stronger. A traditional analog for the pain caused by the Lord of Form is of a mouse being caught in a trap because it can't resist eating the cheese. The Dalai Lama offers an interesting twist on this analogy. He says that when he was a boy in Tibet, he used to try to catch the mice, not because he wished to kill them, but because he wanted to outsmart them. He says that the mice in Tibet must be more clever than ordinary mice because he never succeeded in catching one. Instead, they became his models of enlightened conduct. He felt that, unlike most of us, they had figured out that the best thing they could do for themselves was to refrain from the short-term pleasure of cheese in order to have the long-term pleasure of living. He encouraged us to follow their example. No matter how we get trapped, our usual reaction is not to become curious about what's happening. We do not naturally investigate the strategies of ego. Most of us just blindly reach for something familiar that we associate with relief and then wonder why we stay dissatisfied. The radical approach of bodhichita practices is to pay attention to what we do. Without judging it, we train in kindly acknowledging whatever is going on. Eventually, we might decide to stop hurting ourselves in the same old ways. The second of the three lords of materialism is the Lord of speech. The Lord represents how we use beliefs of all kinds to give us the illusion of certainty about the nature of reality. Any of the isms, political, ecological, philosophical, or spiritual, can be misused in this way. Political correctness is a good example of how the Lord operates. When we believe in the correctness of our view, we can be very narrow-minded and prejudiced about the faults of other people. For example, how do I react when my beliefs about the government are challenged? How about when others don't agree with how I feel about homosexuality, or women's rights, or environment? What happens when my ideas about smoking or drinking are challenged? What do I do when my religious convictions are not shared? New practitioners often embrace meditation or the Buddhist teachings with passionate enthusiasm. We feel part of a new group, glad to have a new perspective. But do we then judge people who see the world differently? Do we close our minds to others because they don't believe in karma? The problem isn't with the beliefs themselves, but with how we use them to get a ground under our feet, how we use them to feel right and to make someone else wrong, how we use them to avoid feeling the uneasiness of not knowing what's going on. It reminds me of a fellow I knew in the 1960s whose passion was for protesting against injustice. Whenever it looked as if a conflict would be resolved, he would sink into kind of gloom. When a new cause for outrage arose, he would become elated again. Jarvis J. Masters is a Buddhist friend of mine living on death row. In his book, Finding Freedom, he tells a story about what happens when we are seduced by the Lord of Speech. One night, he was sitting on his bed reading when his neighbor Omar yelled out, "Hey, Jarvis, check out Channel 7. Jarvis had a picture on without the sound. He looked up and saw a lot of enraged people waving their arms in the air. He said, "Hey, Omar, what's going on?" And his neighbor told him, "It's the Ku Klux Klan, Jarvis, and they're yelling and screaming about how everything's the fault of the blacks and the Jews." A few minutes later, Omar hollered, "Hey, check out what's happening now." Jarvis looked up on his television and he saw a large group of people marching, waving placards, and getting arrested. He said, "I can see just by looking at them that they're really angry about something. What's up with all those people?" Omar said, "Jarvis, that's an environmentalist demonstration. They're demanding an end to cutting down trees and killing seals and everything. See that one woman raging into the microphone and all those people screaming? 10 minutes later, Omar called out, "Hey Jarvis, are you still watching? Can you see what's happening now?" Jarvis looked up, and this time he saw a lot of people in suits looking like they were in a real uproar about something. He said, "What's up with these guys?" And Omar answered, "Jarvis, that's the president and the senators of the United States, and they're fighting and arguing right there on national TV, each trying to convince the public that the other is at fault for the terrible economy." Jarvis said, "Well, Omar, I sure learned something interesting tonight. Whether they're wearing Klan outfits or environmentalist outfits or really expensive suits, all these people have the same angry faces." Being caught by the Lord of Speech may start with just a reasonable conviction, but what we feel to be true. However, if we find ourselves becoming righteously indignant, that's a sure sign that we've gone too far, and that our ability to effect change will be hindered. Belief and ideals have become just another way to put up walls. The third Lord, the Lord of Mind, uses the most subtle and seductive strategies of all. The Lord of Mind comes into play when we attempt to avoid uneasiness by seeking special states of mind. We can use drugs this way. We can use sports. We can use falling in love. We can use spiritual practices. There are many ways to obtain altered states of mind. These special states are addictive. It feels so good to break free from our mundane experience. We want more. For example, new meditators often expect that with training, they can transcend the pain of ordinary life. It's disappointing to say, at least, to be told to touch down into the thick of things, to remain open and receptive to boredom as well as bliss. Sometimes, out of the blue, people will have amazing experiences. Recently, a lawyer told me that while standing on a street corner waiting for the light to change, an extraordinary thing occurred. Suddenly, her body expanded until it felt as big as the entire universe. She felt instinctively that she and the universe were one. She had no doubt that this was actually true. She knew she was not, as she previously assumed, separate from everything else. Needlessly to say, the experience shook her beliefs and made her question what we do with our lives, spending so much time trying to protect the illusion of our personal territory. She understood how this predicament leads to the wars and violence that are escalating all over the globe. The problem arose when she started hanging on her experiences, when she wanted it back. Ordinary perception was no longer satisfying. It, it left her feeling troubled and out of touch. She felt that if she couldn't stay in that altered state, she'd just as soon be dead. In the 60s, I knew people who took LSD every day with their belief that they could maintain that high. Instead, they fried their brains. I still know men and women who are addicted to falling in love. Like Don Juan, they can't bear it without that initial glow begins to wear off. They're always seeking out someone new. Even though peak experiences might show us the truth and inform us about why we are training, they are essentially no big deal. If we can't integrate them into the ups and downs of our lives, if we cling to them, they will hinder us. We can trust our experiences as valid, but then we have to move on and learn to get along with our neighbors. Then, even the most remarkable insights can begin to permeate our lives. As the 12th century Tibetan yogi Marlarepe said when he heard of his student Gampopa, peak experiences, they are neither good nor bad. Keep meditating. It isn't the special states themselves that are the problem. it's their addictive quality. Since it is inevitable that what goes up must come down, when we take refuge in the Lord of Mind, we are doomed to disappointment. Each of us has a variety of habitual tactics for avoiding life as it is. In a nutshell, that's the message of the three lords of materialism. These simple teaching is, it seems, everyone's autobiography. When we use these strategies, we become less able to enjoy the tenderness and wonder that is available in the most unremarkable of times. Connecting with bodhichita is ordinary. When we don't run from everyday uncertainty, we can contact bodhicitta. It's a natural force that wants to emerge. It is, in fact, unstoppable. Once we stop blocking it with ego's strategies, the refreshing water of bodhicitta will definitely begin to flow. We can slow it down, we can dam it up. Nevertheless, whenever there's an opening, bodhicitta will always appear, like those weeds and flowers that pop up of the sidewalk as soon as there's cracks. And that is the end of chapter 2. I want to thank you for listening. Hopefully, you are enjoying this book as much as I'm reading it. So, I want you guys to remember I have reading epilepsy, and at any point, I could have a seizure doing this. Alma, why are you doing it? Well, I'm doing it because you need to train your nervous system. You need to do the things that are hard, but you need to get to the point where you can stop before you have the seizure. So this is part of my neurological training I do for myself. So I expose myself to these things that are difficult on the levels that they're not going to hurt me too bad. So honestly, the print in this book is pretty good. Actually appreciate that. I have a book I hope to read to everybody as well. The print is a lot smaller. And the other side of this is there are many people that cannot read books, and there have been plenty of times when I have not been able to read more than a few sentences or paragraphs without having seizures. And honestly, I love books. I love reading. I grew up reading. I mean, it was a great way to be somewhere else other than a hellacious childhood. Same thing about video games and stuff. Great way to escape the hell of not knowing how to cope with the crap going on in your life, being yelled at, being hit, being whatever, being used, abused. Some of them, want to use you. Some of them want to get used by you. It's all just a lot of people that need to find answers and to overcome their own fears and challenges in the process. So I believe that you can do this. I know you can do this. I have been able to do this myself. I've been working on meditation and yoga and tai chi and all these other forms and methods of connecting with my body and being able to say, hey, look, I have slipped the disc in my L5 S1. I had so much agony. I better put it back in place so I don't have to go see the doctor. I mean, it gets to a point where you're taking care of yourself because the doctors got a shot, they got a pill, and sometimes you need a combination of that shot and pill and a chiropractor, or you just need an acupuncturist like me that is really good at their job. So, I know there's other acupuncturists out there still serving with skills that are comparable to mine. I know I'm not the only person, so I know you're in safe hands, but you got to remember that as in all industries, you can't just be like, I tried one guy and acupuncture sucks. Be like, yeah, people suck. You got to realize there's good massage therapists, there are bad massage therapists, there are good doctors, there are bad doctors, there are good restaurants, there are bad restaurants, there are good grocery stores, there are bad grocery stores. You guys get the point. I don't want to keep going on it like that. But I mean, seriously, everything in your life is about connecting with these places that help empower you, help make you feel like you are the best version of yourself. And if you're talking with doctors, you're talking with other people that are putting you down for your struggle, then you need to go find other people to help you out, or realize that you probably, if you're like me, need to calm down and stop expecting other people to understand, because they won't. They can't understand because they're not going through it. And it's just the problem. It's the cold, hard truth. I know it sucks. It sucks so bad. I mean, seriously, I've been spent years just trying to figure this out on my own because if I nobody can handle it. It's one of these things that I know that I changed the mood of my environment. People around me, whether they want to or not, like it rubs off on them. So if I'm not able to be the best version of myself, it's hard for them too. I lead by example, and if my example is like angry and upset and struggling, that's what other people see too. So the goal is to do better, to be better, to always try to find the next level, to stop with the thrill seeking, stop with all the avoidance, and to find healthy coping mechanisms. I mean, seriously, I have people that are trying to figure out what it is that they can do to rediscover who they are. And I highly recommend you just try things you've never done before. I mean, if you never drew, try drawing something. It's fun. Get a crayon, coloring book. I highly recommend it. It's cathartic. Get a coloring book. You don't know if it's fun or not? Try a coloring book. Get some puzzles. You can put puzzles together. There's activities. You can go try a new activity. Go join a group. I mean, as the world is opening back up after the, you know, COVID crap, whatever, the flu, which got everybody's media just blew out of proportion. They're talking about the whatever. Let's not get into a lot of this. Let's go back to just taking care of yourself. And we're not talking about fear. Don't worry about this crap. Take care of yourself. Like, this is the most important thing that you need to do, is ensure that you are okay with yourself. And if you are not okay with yourself, you ask yourself, why am I not okay with me? And then you start addressing it and realize that when you make changes, you don't have to flip everything upside down on its head all at once. Honestly, it's really hard for a lot of people when they do that. So just make sure you're doing things a little bit at a time. It gets overwhelming. I swear, I know that's been the last problem, for a while. It gets overwhelming. This huge idea of what I think everybody needs, and like where I think I'm going to be in the next 3 to 5 years in the process of the Drug Free Epilepsy Foundation, and helping you and everyone else out there like learn how to live their life, being the best version of themselves by being aware of who they are, not running from life, but living life, enjoying life. Stop running from life and go run towards it. Seriously, run towards life. This is the best way to live. You can't live in fear of what's going to go wrong all the time. We have to start thinking about everything that can go right. And seriously, so much more important, because we need to focus on the goal. When you're focusing on the problems, all you're going to do is you're going to see problems. You're just going to keep heading towards these problems. But if you focus on solutions, now your attention, your energy, it all will just manifest itself that way, because that is where you're putting your thoughts. That's where your energy is going to go. And then you give yourself a reason to have this beautiful future and get passionate about it and love about it. And you've got another reason to keep going too. And you just get more in love with the idea of better days, of being another better version of you every day. You just try a little harder. You just rest when you have to. Rest as hard as you have to, and then play fun. Make sure you're not just working, make sure that you're entertaining yourself. Make sure you're telling yourself jokes, because sometimes that's what it takes. You gotta tell yourself a joke, you know. You gotta start laughing, realizing the insanity of everything, and it is just one kind of big joke. And if you laugh at it, the experience transforms, and you can transform as well. And just let go of all the anger and the hatred. And I mean, seriously, I understand. I've been trapped, friggin' angry for a few years now, just trying to get my brain back. And it comes and goes based on how the people are. And right now, it's kind of back to where it should be in a normal, sane place. I mean, except our life is not sane. We do the best that we can to deal with the problems in our life without the support that we want. Because, yes, we would all love for somebody to come along and save us from ourselves or the situation we find ourselves in. But honestly, the best I can do is tell you to take care of yourself because there's only one of me and I can't be everywhere all at once. And it's the same thing. Like, we all have to be responsible for ourselves. It's called adulting. This is like survival of the fittest world. Is like the whole thing is like, man, just, we gotta be the ones that are saying, hey, look, I matter enough to myself to ensure that I am gonna feed myself. I'm going to go for a walk. I'm going to talk to people that help me feel better about myself. I'm going to find activities that address my brain and help heal it. I mean, I'm going to stop stressing myself out. This is the whole thing, guys. I mean, I'm telling you, you really, really, really need to figure out what's going on with you. So, we'll be doing this through the program. Pay attention, join the program, pay attention when I'm posting on social media. We're going to be doing a whole lot more education about your brain and your gut and how to maintain a healthy life. Whether the drugs work, or doctors call you crazy, or your friends and family block you on Facebook, it doesn't matter. This is about you finding the tools and the answers and building up to being the best version of yourself. And remember, it doesn't happen overnight. You can't plant a seed and start eating the fruit the next day. It takes time. So some plants grow faster than others. So this is why you cannot compare yourself to anyone else. You got to make sure you're you're you get the right amount of nourishment that you need, the right amount of sunshine, the water, the food. Seriously, take care of yourself like you matter. It's so important. I mean, you do matter. You can make an amazing difference on the world if you can just take the time to find what it is that's causing your epilepsy. Because epilepsy, it's not the end. It's not the end, I promise you. So, what it is a symptom of some deeper BS that needs to be addressed. And that's what I love about acupuncture and chiropractic and a lot of these other naturopaths. We start looking for a root cause on stuff. So, that's the whole point. It's like, why did this happen? Chiropractors will tell you you've got some misalignment with your spine. And I'm going to tell you, hell yeah, you've been having seizures and crooked, and man, you've got some misalignments with your spine. Like, chiropractic work is amazing. If you can get, adjusted occasionally and it not give you in a way that's not going to give you a seizure because, sometimes too much blood flow and adjusting the wrong stuff. I mean, whew, I know I definitely had I haven't had any seizures given myself any adjustments, but man, I do have definitely gotten some head rushes and stuff. Had to sit down. But I mean, seriously, taking care of yourself is amazing. And if you don't know how to do it, that's why you go see somebody who does. Getting a professional to help you learn how to take care of yourself, teach you how to do the exercises that you can enjoy, that you be like, oh, that's a lot of things. People hate exercise because they can't enjoy it. They hate diets because they can't enjoy it. They hate like change because they don't know how to enjoy it. And so they go back to the old ways because uncomfortable without, knowing how to find the comfort in the uncomfortable is some version of hell for some people. And it sucks. Seriously, growing pains mean it hurts and gets uncomfortable and addressing it, not running away from it. So I'm going to let you go. Thanks for listening. And make sure that you share this with anybody else out there that you know that needs to hear a message like this. Because honestly, I think we all could use a little more love in our life, a little more forgiveness of ourselves, a little more empowerment to know that you are powerful. You can do whatever you put your mind to. As long as you put your mind to doing better things, you will do better. You can get better. You can have, like I said, an amazing life living with epilepsy. There are people doing all kinds of stuff. And again, if you can address it right, I know I've been ignoring stuff, and so I'm a little slow on the phase I'm at right now. But I mean, things are under control. My dad's not here. There's no trauma. Stuff's all gone. Ian and I are getting along a lot better. Man, I'm telling you, like being able to get your home environment taken care of is important. And if you can't get along with who you're living with, I mean, you got to start with getting along with yourself. Get along with yourself and stop caring what other people are saying to you. Stop caring what your seizures make them feel. Stop feeling sorry for yourself. I don't mean to be mean about this. This is truth. You just have to stop wallowing in your own misery. I've been doing it. I'm guilty of it. I can say this because I know I've been doing it too. But it reaches a point where we just have to say, I've had enough and I'm ready to do something about it, and I want to know how to do it. So then we find the right people to help you do it. So I don't know everything, and there's no way I'm ever going to know everything. I'm not that vain to believe that I'm going to know everything. I can tell you I'm smart. I'm good at understanding stuff, and I'm good at explaining and helping people. But I'll be honest, I will never know everything. I mean, it's impossible. And that's why I believe in teamwork and cooperation and collaboration and working with people and not for them. Because when you're working with people, you're able to address what's going on with them. It's the reason why I got into acupuncture. It's because it's a holistic medicine that addresses what's going on in that crazy head of yours. What's going on in that heart, all those feelings, all these things that we just were never taught how to deal with, that sometimes are still tearing us apart 40 years later, and all the stuff that our body has had to endure along the way. So, I mean, whether you're 5, 45, 105, acupuncture is safe and effective for so many ailments. It is a primary healthcare position in the state of California here. If I was in Florida, I'd actually be a doctor. But because of politics, I don't have a doctorate here. But it is what it is. I'm in the state of California, so I just have 4 years master's, lots of experience as an acupuncturist, and lots of experience as an epileptic trying to figure out how to survive when the drugs don't work. The doctors call me crazy, and all my friends and family block me on Facebook, or I just gave up and quit asking for help. So I hope you do the same thing. Find the inner strength, find the way to overcome your fears, because you deserve more. You deserve a life, but you have to work for it. You can't just wait for it to land on your lap. There's no easy button. You just got to say, I deserve more, and so I'm going to love myself more. So, from one lover to another, I love you very much. Take care of yourself like you matter, because you do.